The chandelier didn't just shine that night. It watched me bleed in silence. Its crystal drops hovered above the dining hall of Seabrook Cove, scattering light across linen, silver, and faces that had ignored me for 11 years. Faces that smiled at me when they needed something, and looked through me when they didn't. I stood at the edge of the table, fingers digging into a heavy porcelain salad bowl, my palms burning as if the weight itself was trying to remind me where I belonged. I smelled toasted almonds, aged balsamic, money. I tasted only rage. My mother-in-law, Margaret Hale, didn't even bother to look up. She was too busy admiring a guest's vintage watch, her lips curved into that sharp, polished smile she used on people she respected, never me. With a flick of her manicured hand, she gestured toward the sideboard like she was swatting a fly. "Just leave it there, Clara," she said coolly. "The help doesn't linger." The room froze. Forks hovered midair. 12 people watched me, some uncomfortable, some bored, most relieved it wasn't them. I felt my husband's gaze last. Andrew, the man who had watched me manage billion-dollar infrastructure systems, who knew exactly how capable I was and still couldn't find the courage to say a single word. He stared at his plate, fascinated by asparagus. Something in me went very still. I didn't turn toward the sideboard. I walked straight to the head of the table. The bowl hit the wood with a sharp, deliberate clack. Wine rippled in Margaret's glass. I met her eyes and let the version of myself she'd trained into obedience finally die. "You're right," I said evenly. "The staff shouldn't eat with the guests." A pause. "But the owner should." Her smile cracked. "As of 4 o'clock this afternoon," I continued, my voice calm as I sliding into glass, "I own this entire resort. Every room, every account, including the chair you're sitting in." I didn't wait for her response. I didn't stay to enjoy the shock or the gasps or the way Andrew's face drained of color. I turned and walked out, my heels striking limestone in a rhythm that felt like a countdown. By midnight, I was alone in the library. The estate pressed dark and heavy against the windows, but my laptop glowed, clean, precise, honest. This wasn't a breakdown. It was an audit. For years, I had been the invisible structure holding their world together. I paid for emergencies no one thanked me for. I covered debts they pretended didn't exist. I financed appearances while being treated like background noise. 6 months earlier, through a quiet holding company, I'd bought the debt-strangling Seabrook Cove. While Margaret hosted luncheons and gossiped about donors, I signed documents that made me her landlord. My pulse was steady, clinical. Emotion is inefficient when systems fail. One by one, I revoked access codes. Permanent resident privileges vanished. Complimentary services disappeared. By sunrise, the Hale family wouldn't just be overstaying guests, they'd be locked out of a fortress that no longer recognized their names. They'd always called me the mouse. Quiet, useful, forgettable. They never asked what I did for a living. They didn't need to. I made things run. That was enough. Or so they thought. Andrew was the hardest variable. Not cruel, just absent. Raised by a woman who punished independence until silence felt like survival. I'd mistaken his fear for kindness. My compassion became their favorite resource to drain. At dawn, the house buzzed with tension. I was pouring coffee when Lydia, my sister-in-law, swept in filming on her phone, already performing for her audience. "And here we have the assistant," she chirped into the camera, still committed to the aesthetic. My phone buzzed. A message from Nathan, the property manager I'd hired in secret months earlier. "Legal team is on standby. Ownership fully recorded. Ready when you are." I took a slow sip of coffee. Anger burns fast. Power lasts longer. And tonight, there would be a gala. They thought it was a celebration. They had no idea it was an eviction. By the time the sun rose over Seabrook Cove, the house was already lying to itself. I could feel it in the air, that tight, brittle politeness that settles in before something breaks. The kind of quiet where everyone pretends nothing happened because admitting the truth would mean losing control. I was in the kitchen, barefoot on cold stone, pouring black coffee when Lydia's heels announced her before she did.
Click, click, click.
Each step was performance. She entered with her phone already mounted on a stabilizer, a ring light glowing in her pupils like hunger. She didn't ask if I was okay.
She didn't mention last night.
Reality didn't exist unless it could be monetized. She angled the camera toward me. And here we see Andrew's wife in her natural habitat, she sang sweetly, still pretending she owns the place. Isn't she adorable? The word adorable landed like spit. My phone vibrated again. Not Nathan this time, the family group chat. Margaret had pinned a message to the top, bold and immovable. Regarding Clara's unfortunate outburst last night, we believe stress and altitude may have caused a temporary episode. Please treat her gently. Andrew and I have agreed to overlook it for the sake of tonight's gala. I stared at the screen, stunned by the precision of it. In 4 sentences, she turned a legal fact into a psychiatric flaw. This wasn't denial, it was narrative control. Gaslighting refined into an art form. I caught Lydia's reflection in the espresso machine. She was smiling at herself, convinced she was directing the scene, that I was just another prop in her feed. I took a slow sip of coffee. Let the heat anchor me. Then my phone buzzed again. Management files are ready. Legal is at the gate. We move on your word. Nathan. The manager's office sat tucked behind glass and dark wood, far from the glitter and noise of the guest wings. When I walked in, Nathan didn't offer me a polite smile. He slid a thick leather binder across the desk instead. Ownership is complete, he said calmly. Recorded yesterday at 4:02 p.m. I opened it. Page after page of truth. Margaret had treated the North Wing like her private boarding house, charging maintenance fees that never reached the resort. Lydia had hosted influencer events that drained tens of thousands from operational budgets billed to accounts that didn't exist. A parasite-host relationship. If I hadn't done this, I said quietly, I'd still be clearing plates here 10 years from now. Nathan nodded. He already knew. I imagined another version of myself, smaller, quieter, erased. A woman known only as Andrew's wife. A utility. A convenience. No exceptions, I said, my voice firm. Draft notices to quit for every Hale suite. If they can't prove paid occupancy for the last 3 years, they're trespassers. Nathan hesitated, then slid another folder toward me. Hale Family Trust. The air shifted. Your mother-in-law didn't just overspend, he said carefully. She forged her late husband's signature. Nearly $1 million pulled from tax reserves. I stared at the jagged ink on the documents and laundered it through resort accounts. I finished. Federal level. Andrew's digital approval signature sat there like a quiet betrayal. Whether he understood or not, his name was on it. This isn't just family drama anymore, I said, closing the folder. It's criminal. That evening, the gala bloomed exactly as planned. Silk. Champagne. Borrowed prestige. Margaret stood at the center, glass raised, glowing with confidence she hadn't earned. To legacy, she declared. To the Hale name, standing firm as the cliffs beneath us. Applause swelled. I stepped onto the stage. I wasn't wearing the soft dress they expected. I wore a tailored charcoal suit, sharp, intentional. The kind a woman wears when she's done asking. Margaret's smile tightened. Clara, dear, she murmured, don't embarrass Andrew. I took the microphone. The Hale legacy, I said evenly, is standing on forged signatures and unpaid taxes I settled this morning. Silence crashed down. Margaret's glass trembled. I handed her the documents. That, I continued, is your eviction notice. Andrew stepped forward, panic in his eyes. Please, we can talk privately. No, I said softly. We're done whispering. Security was already moving. 30 minutes, I added. Anything left becomes collateral. Lydia screamed. Phones dropped. Mask shattered. I walked through the stunned crowd without shrinking. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't the ghost in their house. I was the architect, and I had just pulled the final support beam. The screaming didn't follow me. That was the strangest part. I expected it, the chaos, the insults, the last desperate attempts to rewrite the story. Instead, there was only the sound of my own breathing as I stepped outside, the ocean wind cutting clean and sharp across my face. Behind me, Seabrook Cove was devouring itself in whispers. Inside, security was doing what systems always do when finally given clear instructions, executing without emotion. Andrew found me near the cliff path 10 minutes later. He looked smaller out there, stripped of chandeliers and inherited confidence. His hands shook, not with anger, with fear. "You didn't have to do it like this," he said. I turned to him slowly. "Like what?" "In public," he whispered. "You humiliated my mother." I studied his face, the boy he had never stopped being. The man who believed cruelty was survivable as long as it was familiar. "She humiliated me for 11 years, I said. "You watched." "That's not fair." I almost laughed. "Fair would have been you standing up once," I replied quietly. "Fair would have been you saying my name when she called me the help." He looked away, jaw tight. Silence, his favorite shield. "They're saying you've lost it," he said. "That you're unstable. The guests, they don't understand." "I don't need them to," I answered. "I need the law to." That's when it hit him. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't a bluff. This was permanent. "You're really doing this," he said, voice cracking. "To your own family." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "I was never their family, Andrew. I was their infrastructure." He reached for my hand, instinctive, desperate. I stepped back. "I can fix this," he said quickly. "I'll talk to her. I'll convince her to apologize. We can go to therapy." "You had 11 years. I cut in gently. "I needed you once. I don't anymore." His eyes filled, not with resolve, but grief. The grief of a man realizing too late that silence has a cost. "I can't choose between you and my mother," he admitted. "I know," I said. "That's why I already chose." By morning, the north wing was sealed. Suitcases lined the marble floors. Margaret sat rigid in a velvet chair, surrounded by boxes of objects she'd once used as proof of her superiority, designer bags, framed photos, meaningless awards. None of it could protect her now. She looked up when she saw me. "You think you've won," she said coldly. "But you've destroyed everything." I knelt in front of her, so we were eye to eye. "No," I said calmly. "I stopped subsidizing your delusion." Her mouth opened, sharp words ready, but nothing came out. For the first time, there was no script that worked. By noon, the lawyers arrived. By evening, the trust was frozen. And by night, Andrew was gone. He left with 2 bags and a look of quiet devastation, still hoping someone would save him from choosing. No one did. The house fell silent. Not empty, just peaceful. I walked the halls that night, past doors that no longer whispered my name like a warning. Past mirrors where I didn't flinch at my own reflection. I opened my laptop one last time and reviewed the files.
Debts. Lies.
Years of invisible labor. Then I selected the entire directory.
Delete.
As I closed the lid, my phone buzzed. One message. From an unknown number. "You don't know what you've started." I looked out at the dark ocean, the waves crashing steady and relentless. "Oh," I whispered to the quiet room. "I do." The ocean was louder after they left. Not angry, honest. I noticed it the first morning I woke alone in the master suite, sunlight spilling across the ceiling without the usual tension curling in my chest. No voices demanding. No footsteps measuring my worth. Just waves, steady and indifferent, the way truth always is. The message, "You don't know what you've started," sat unread in my phone like a dare. I did know. I had started silence. The lawyers worked quickly. Faster than Margaret ever expected. Trusts frozen. Accounts audited. The press never needed my version. Public records speak fluently on their own. Forged signatures. Laundered funds. A legacy hollowed out from the inside. Margaret never called me again. Andrew sent one email. It was long, careful, full of grief and confusion and apologies that arrived a decade too late. He wrote that he loved me, that he hoped one day I'd understand how impossible his position had been. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I archived it. Some systems can't be repaired. They have to be dismantled. Weeks passed. The north wing transformed. Walls opened. Light poured in. Young architects and engineers moved through the space with coffee-stained notebooks and bright, hungry ideas. People who built things. People who didn't mistake cruelty for power. I watched them one afternoon from the balcony, laughter rising up toward me, and felt something unfamiliar settle into my bones. Relief. Not triumph. Not revenge. Balance. On the cliffside one quiet morning, I opened my old family spreadsheet for the last time. Names. Numbers. Years of swallowed anger converted into neat columns. I hovered over the trackpad, remembering the woman who once believed endurance was the same as love. It isn't. I deleted the file. The wind carried the sound of the sea through the open doors.
Clean.
Unapologetic. I took a breath and felt, for the first time in my adult life, entirely real. I wasn't the mouse. I wasn't the help. I was the architect who finally stopped living inside someone else's design. And when I walked back into the house, my house, the silence didn't accuse me. It welcomed me home.